I watched All-Star Weekend, so you didn't have to. Oh, man. It's one of those things where you're always excited into the weekend, and then as it plays out, you're like, "Dang, this kinda stinks," right? Alright, so I will go through just some quick bullet point notes. I took notes from each evening of events, and I'll just run through them real quick because I know some people are gonna want my All-Star Weekend take, even though it's probably not that provocative. But let me go ahead and do all over this weekend. Friday night, look, DK Metcalf dunking on a bunch of 5'8" celebrities. Sorry, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. You're the biggest, most athletic receiver in the NFL. And no, yeah, like they got to do something with that, right? You knew they were lacking star power in Salt Lake City when they kept panning to the Chili's guy, right? The Guy Ferrari or whatever. Like that's your A-lister? Nah, right? I will confess, I think the Rising Stars Challenge is more interesting than the All-Star game simply for the fact that we don't know these kids that well, right? And let's be clear, these games, they're not really about the play, it's about the interaction and the fraternity of how these guys treat each other, right? I did make note one thing was Walker Kessler, right? The big 7-footer, the 22nd pick, part of the Gobert trade. Um, it got me to thinking these teams are drafting for archetype over skill, right? Like it's like you want a 6'8" wing who could learn how to shoot the three and can run the floor, or a guy that's just a proven. You just knew this dude was going to be pretty damn good. I'm not sitting here saying like I thought he was going to be this good, but when you looked at him, you looked at his tape and his profile, you're like, oh, he's going to be a serviceable guy. And so just a thought from that. Let's move on to Saturday night. Skills challenge needs to be just abolished, right? Like just get away from it. I was thinking maybe a spelling bee, I think that would maybe be too humiliating. So how about karaoke night? There's all these young aspiring rappers who play in the NBA. Just do a karaoke night. I think those 3-4 performances, that'd be a lot of fun, right? Um, Moving on to the 3-point competition. My money was on Tyrese Halliburton because of his funky shot. I thought it would lend itself to pulling the ball off the rack, right? He's kind of got a weird rhythm, that set push thing. I thought that would help. And in the first round, it looked that way. But I think that mindset and experience goes a long way in the 3-point competition. And Dame pulls it out, the hometown Dame. He got out the Weber State jersey. And that got me to thinking about, the story goes, the loyalty of Dame, right? And how that was the first school that offered him. And then even when he got D1 offers, he stayed at Weber State. You could call it loyal. You could call it dumb. I don't know. That's subjective. I think obviously it's worked out for Dame, right? But I just think that there may be a little bit of irony when you look back at his career, and he did it in college. And then is he going to do the same thing in Portland, where it's just loyalty over maybe making a better decision for himself? But I can't tell that man how to live. Congratulations to Dame on the 3-point shootout. He's a worthy champion. Was Julius Randle? I know he was a fill-in, right? Who did he fill in for? I can't remember, but he was a fill-in, last second fill-in. Is he the worst? Is he the most, I won't say worst, the most non-shooter ever in the 3-point competition? Right? He essentially he's Draymond with a green light. So I was, oh, Randall, okay, fine. Moving on to the dunk competition. Look, if that was the first time you ever saw Mac McClung, I get it. I get it, right? This little guy comes in there looking like the grandpa from Up, and he's got ups like that, right? It was startling. But if you're a hoop head and you're familiar with him, you kind of knew what was going to happen, right? You've seen it. So every year this is the discussion. How do you fix the dunk competition? It's back. Mac brought it back. Look, I think Mac is a worthy contestant, right? Like he's a legit, really good dunker. I think one thing you could do is you bring back the previous champion, right? And you hear the guys talk about incentive base, $1 million. I don't know what they can throw out there to get these guys into it. I think that where Mac would struggle if he was going up against a Levine, a Ja, a Zion is 2 feet, 2 hands. I don't think he can palm the ball, and I don't think he likes to jump off 1 foot, so that would limit him. But I do think it was dope, man. I do think it was dope that you clearly, like, it's a skill in itself. Dunking is a culture in itself. There are a lot of the best dunkers in the world aren't basketball players per se, right? Like Jordan Rivera, shout out that kid. So it was cool to see Mac be rewarded for something that clearly he's put a lot of time into. Go into the G League. Go bring in a kid like a Jordan Rivera that's a dunk, mix it up, mix and match, get a little more outside of the box, incentivize them. But yeah, overall, it was dope. I think it was blown out of proportion of how great it was. But again, if you don't know who Mac was, then you were shocked. You had that startling element of it. But I thought it was a cool moment for him and for something that he'd put so much time into. And then you get into last night's All-Star game and the ceremonies and the draft, right? I got to say, Bron's resume just sounds crazy now, right? Like all-time leading scorer, all-time All-Star appearances, 4-time everything. It sounds wild, right? They tried to avoid the last pick thing. Come on, man. You deal with this when you're 8 years old on the playground. I think these big boys can deal with being the last pick. And it turned out Jaren Jackson Jr. was really kind of the last pick, right? The one thing that would have been crazy is they asked him if they wanted to make trades. Could you imagine if they did live trades? They're like, hey, you want to, right? They're trying to avoid the last pick. The live trade would have been way more, I think, feelings hurt on that front, right? And then the game, if that's what you want to call it, right? Jason Tatum, maybe the most unimpressive 50 ball you've ever seen in a basketball game. It's not his fault. Like, he just shot the shots that he should take, right? But listen, this is the load management era. That's what these players are being told, right? To preserve their bodies. I don't have a solution I don't watch baseball anymore, but does baseball still do the thing where whoever wins the All-Star game gets home field advantage in the World Series? Because that's the only solution I can come up with for this All-Star game is East-West, whoever wins it gets home court in the finals. That would definitely put some juice into the game, and I think it would also make the picks a lot more serious. Anyway, those are my All-Star weekend takes. Got a couple more days. I got a Warrior video coming up here that I've been working on. I'm excited to drop in the next 24 hours. So hit the bell so you can get that notification when I do drop it. I'm out, y'all.